We're going to start in the NFL. One of the most interesting things I've ever it never ceases to amaze me, Felix, that we find out coaches are not allowed to run their playbook when they go to these places. We find out Chip Kelly wasn't able to call his plays. So there were allegations that came out as soon as he got fired that he was calling the wrong play, calling plays that weren't in the game plan, calling things that they hadn't talked about. It all makes sense now, why it was so disjointed, why everything was. Now, there's two sides to every story. But when you hear Kelly sometimes botched his own play calls, this is a man that has run his offense forever. But it also, I think it also hurts a little bit of the integrity here because, he already was kind of proven as kind of a gimmicky, I guess you want to say it, in the NFL. Now he comes back, wins a national title, and now he's back without a job.
Yeah, it is kind of, especially when you bring in a guy like Chip Kelly, who is known for his offense. Like, that is what he does. Like, I mean, and like the whole reason Pete Carroll and the Raiders brought him in was like, yeah, you can be basically the head coach of our offense, and we can figure everything else out. And we're going to talk about the Raiders Chargers here. Patrick Graham's not doing a terrible job. And he's going to get another gig elsewhere if he doesn't stay on with the Raiders, however that works out. Because I think he's been there for like 3 head coaches, if I'm not mistaken.
That tells you, hey, look, you know me. I'm a big Patrick Graham fan. We've talked about this on the show. I think he does a great job. I'm also seeing a pattern where Kelly's having a problem, and then defensively, you kind of get rid of some players, and then it looks like Legion of Boom 2.0, which, by the way, spot drop cover 3 doesn't work in the NFL anymore.
It is just kind of interesting, but the Chargers get away with divisional win, clean game for Herbert. They just got in, got out, got whatever they needed done in that game, and that's what you have to do against the Raiders and teams like the Raiders, is just win the game, get out how you can, and especially for a team like the Chargers without their tackles and seeing what they're able to do, you just get in, get out, get the dub.
Yeah, to me it was just like, get past this game. Don't make it a trap game. They have no wiggle room to lose.
And for the first half, it kind of felt like it too.
Oh,
it kind of felt like it was like one of those games where like the bad team and like there was just the cross intersection of the trending map. And so like it felt like, here we go. Raiders gonna, like, not every team is gonna go 1-16 this year. The Raiders aren't gonna go 2-15 this year. They might steal a game off the Chargers. So
yeah, well, and I think the biggest thing here is, okay, you get rid of the offensive coordinator, and then you proceed to rush only for 31 yards on a defense that is not like it was last year. If you have anchor bias from last year, this is not the same Chargers defense.
And with a top 6 overall pick that you spent on a guy
who has been doing well. Yeah, it's just the Raiders are the Raiders, man. And I guess a lot of this stuff too, it comes out like a lot of stuff was like handpicked by Tom Brady. Again, I go back. There's a few things. Go back to, and I put it in the notes here, go back to 2023, and the Broncos give up 70 points to the Dolphins. Well, they were trying to run a Vic Fangio playbook, and Vance Joseph doesn't know the playbook. I mean, that would be like me giving you, it would be like me, because if you don't know this, Felix is a stand-up comedian, and that would be like Felix giving me his script for the stand-up and then putting me out there. I would look so stupid.
Like, no, it all works. I promise. It's just that he doesn't know what he's doing.
I promise. It's funny. It's funny. Right. It's like, and then once we go back, you go back to stand up. I go back to just being a nerd on a computer watching film. And oh, wow, look what happens when we do that. I will never understand coaches that force other coaches to run things that they don't know how to run.
All right, let's go to college ball, and we're going to keep talking coaches here because that's obviously what you have to talk about this week in college sports, or college football at least. But let's talk about Texas, their defense showing up against A&M, and it's kind of like we kind of knew this was coming down the track for Marcel Reed, whether it was in this Texas game or in a game in the playoff or what, and it still is probably coming for a team like Texas A&M just because he's a good quarterback. Not great. And you kind of need to be great to win moments like that, and especially for an undefeated, at least previously undefeated A&M team. But now this raises the question for Texas, at least, do they make the playoff?
Yeah, so let's start with Marshall Reed. Marshall Reed is
Mhm.
the epitome of like really fun college quarterback.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be that great of a pro. I mean, I don't know, unless he reminds me of like a smaller version of like Jaden Daniels. Like he's kind of really thin, tall,
Everett
sling.
Golson. How about that? How about that for a poll?
Who?
Everett Golson, the quarterback at Notre Dame from like 10 years ago.
Yes. Yes, but just like he's fun to watch. They've got talent. Concepcion is like that dude's amazing. He used to be playing in the NFL. I think, but defensively, they're kind of like hit or miss in the secondary. The big people forget. There was a time at the end of the year last year when Mike Elko was like, we literally cannot cover the deep ball. Like, no one knows how to cover. And it's like, you're looking in a mirror and he's like, that's my fault. We've gotten this far in the season. Then they have one of the better secondaries. So it's like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
he's getting them rolling. But yeah, let's talk about Texas to the playoffs. Look, this is one of those like Alabama 9-3, it's just, I thought somebody did like a whole history of like, the Longhorns are essentially like, that meme of the guy in the banana and he's like, we're looking for that guy. Like we're all looking for, look, it is Texas's fault that we are in this situation with everything in terms of the whole entire climate, the whole entire landscape. NIL, you could say, was coming, but just the realignment, everything. This is the team that went and said, you know what? It's not good enough to be on TV. We're going to have our own television station. It's not good enough to be in the Big 12. We're going to go to the SEC. And then they want to cry about the fact that they have a tough schedule.
Yeah. You're in the SEC. Every game is a big game. Like you gotta, you nut up or shut up. Like
I
it's just
will
one of those
never
things.
feel sorry for A&M or for Texas. And look.
Oklahoma, for that matter, and I know that they're doing well, but like because they trailed Texas there.
Yes, no, I don't. There was a time when Oklahoma actually was out recruiting Texas in Texas. So
Yes.
I don't feel like I don't feel sorry for you at all. This is what you wanted. You're going to now lose games. You were so used to in the Big 12 only losing like one game to each other. And now you're like, oh, we lost to a team like Auburn who's like got 3 wins. And you're like, how the hell did we lose to them? It's like, well, because it's the SEC and they're good too. Or like, how do we lose to Vanderbilt? It's like, yeah, I don't need it. Diego Pavia, by the way, he is, dude. That dude, they need to just make him like he can never leave that campus. Because if he never leaves that campus, they'll just always be good. So they just need to keep him there.
Hilarious. So obviously Lane Kiffin takes the LSU job. That was bound to happen. And then pretty successively after John Sumrall goes to UF, we all get that news and the Tulane job opens. But what I would like to talk about is actually John Sumrall and Ryan Silverfield going to Arkansas, because it feels like these two fan bases, Florida because they missed out on Lane Kiffin, and Arkansas for
They're
larger
the Penn
reasons.
State of the SEC. Let's be
They've
honest.
got way bigger reasons that they're upset. And I wouldn't even put them on the Penn State. I feel like they should pull the reverse Texas and go to the Big 12, which is what some of their fans seem like they want to do. Why to you do you think that like John Sumrall, Ryan Silverfield, you're sitting here is like the fan base I'm going to hates me right now because I'm not this guy, because I'm not that guy? How does this program, how do programs like that move forward? Especially, I mean, we talk about these things like the conversations that people like you and I have all the time, but things like this matter in recruiting, especially at places like Florida and Arkansas, who are really competing with the heavyweights, like we're talking about in the SEC. So with Summerall, Silverfield, and even Golesh going to Auburn a little bit, what is the pushback on this?
Yeah, I think, well, like you talk about the recruiting deal. I mean, I'm seeing it live, like in my neck of the woods. I mean, the president comes out or the AD comes out and says, hey, Dave Aranda's going to stay. And then they lost like 3 top 100 recruits right after the season. And I think like that's a real thing. So it's positive and it's negative in a sense of like, okay, you kept your coach, you're going to keep continuity, but like, what does that mean for the future? Are we going to go through a whole deal? I think for Florida, they think this is Billy Napier 2.0 of like, okay, well, we went and got a guy from the Sun Belt and they forget, like, he's had a stop at Tulane. Like, Tulane has done pretty well too. Willie Fritz is doing pretty well at Houston this year. Like, that's a people who have come from Tulane, like in the past, have been relatively good. I think too, like John Sumrall, go back, dude, he won like 12 games, and he was like 12-2 or something at Troy. At Troy. And that's like something that you would do if you were playing a video game, is that you would get on Troy, just recruit all the little 3-stars and develop them in the SEC country. And you're like, oh, look at cool. But when it comes to like reality, and you're a Florida Gator fan, you're sitting there like, well, I wanted Lane Kiffin. Well, who else were you going to get? You wanted James Franklin. You would have been pissed off with James Franklin because you would have argued that he can't win a big game. So I think John Sumrall comes from a really good system. It's a safe system in the sense that you're not going to go off the deep end. It's a proven system. Like his defensive system, the East Coast 3-4, is one of the most highly run high school defenses. It's all over college. It's one of the more influential defenses that you never, ever hear about because everybody's obsessed with like the Saban tree and Aranda Roberts and all that stuff. Well, you just had Roberts. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I know that they pulled somebody from the NFL to be their GM, which I'm celebrating that. That needs to happen. They need to run it like an NFL. The closer we get to an NFL model, the better everything's going to be. So look, for Florida fans, take a pause, figure out who he's going to bring with him. Sometimes the big splash hire isn't necessarily what you want. Especially when you need a total reset of what's going on. Because look, Urban Meyer ain't coming back. He's not coming back. And so and Spurrier's not coming back. So you need a total reset. I think this is a really good choice. It's a proven winner at 2 different levels. I love seeing guys that have won. That's the thing with Alabama, right? Like their coach started at Sioux Falls, won there. He's won everywhere he's ever been. So, like, just chill. Let him do his job. Let him get into it, and let him start recruiting. I think look, as long as the NIL money's there, and as long as they're going to pay the players, and it's there, and these guys want to develop because they've developed before. And I think sometimes when you just throw money at stars, you end up getting what you get, which is like a bunch of really athletic kids that can't play football.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you and I are in pretty much an agreement that Lane to LSU is probably going to work. As long as, especially new Lane, I think that this new version that we're getting of Lane Kiffin is a better version, and like especially with the high power job that LSU is. Now, keep the governor out of your office as much as you can, but at the same time, I think it will work because of everything that we've seen. Now, the crater that Lane is leaving, Pete Golding at Ole Miss. I want to ask you in particular, the defensive guy, what was up with the Pete Golding discourse, at least in the community for Alabama fans and some of the people that kind of worship at the knees of Nick Saban?
Well, I think Golding was kind of scapegoated a little bit defensively. We saw this with Tosh Lapoy, who is now with Oregon. I mean, people forget that year, go back to that year. I mean, he had to go and like work in the NFL as like a D-line coach for a couple of years until Dan Lanning got the job at Oregon and brought him back, because Lapoy can recruit the West Coast. I mean, that's kind of a big reason he's really tied in, I think, in the LA area. But to me, Golding he kind of got scapegoated a little bit, went to Ole Miss. The Ole Miss defenses have been really, really good. They're essentially, Kiffin left the entire defensive staff. He wanted Blake Baker. That was very clear, which I think is a smart choice. That keeps a little bit of the camaraderie there. Look, if I only have to worry about half the roster leaving, I want it to be on my side of the ball. I don't want to worry about the defensive roster leaving. And I think hey, Blake Baker's going to stay, we're going to be fine. I think with Ole Miss, though, I think this is a good hire. Look, Pete Golding's going to be fine. He's another. The only problem I think what we're getting to in the SEC now is that basically everybody's a Sabanite. So like it's not novel anymore, or it's not like, oh, well, we run the Saban system. Okay, that's great. Everybody does now. Yeah. Like everybody in that whole division does. So it's like there's no novelty. They all know each other now. It'll be really interesting to me. I think Golding will be fine. Again, it will all come down to who who he hires as his offensive coordinator. So who is he going to get on the other side? And you talk about like, why would Lane Kiffin go, who he could potentially win a national championship this year. Why would he go to LSU? And it's, look, at the end of the day, whether you like him or not, the ceiling is always going to be higher in LSU. It's the only state school in that state, which is a very good football state, deep recruiting ties in that football state. He can literally walk to Houston. It's a quick plane ride to Dallas. He can recruit all the rest of the SEC land in and nationally and get everybody down there. So I think that this is it's more of a, my ceiling's a lot higher.
I think that had it been literally anybody else at Ole Miss, it'd been like, yeah, you take the LSU job. It's Lane Kiffin, and everybody's going to throw a fit because, and Lane does have the history, obviously the getting fired on the tarmac stuff, all of the Tennessee, the Raiders stuff but again, 15 years ago, guys.
Yeah.
It's been that long. This is a 50-year-old man now versus a literal 30-year-old child you hired to be the head coach of the Raiders. So, like, this is a complete different person. And so I think that changes the situation on that front. All right. Let's talk about the NFL. Go back to Thanksgiving.
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now.
Yeah, and it's fine. Here's the thing. I'm not that hurt over a Chiefs loss. Like, for the love of God, I was raised on Matt Castle. I'll be fine. But what I will say, what's frustrating is that the Chiefs lost exactly how they used to lose to the Bengals. How they used to lose to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and when Lou Anarumo had that defense working, it was going to be a shootout, and the Chiefs were going to lose. And part of it is that they keep losing the middle eight. And me and my mom, we watch a lot of Chiefs games together. And, like, did they win the toss again? Of course. But Andy Reid's never going to score after halftime unless it's 3 points. That's just what's gonna happen. It's just what the thing is. And there was that weird spot in the game where that they were down 17-14. It was like, you should have taken or at least tied it at halftime and then come out and score a touchdown. You did it. And it was that simple. Where in a game where Dallas is probably going to score, you should have scored with them. And Andy Reid has never coached that way. And you saw the few times that they lost to Cincinnati a handful of years ago now. And Dallas has built a similar way. It's just what it is. Chiefs have to win out now. If they do, we'll see if they make the playoffs.
Well, and I thought you put it in our notes too. I mean, one of the biggest issues is the Carl Loftus deal is going to go down as a huge anchor.
Really
it's
bad.
Another one too. Who was the guy before him that the kid from K-State drafted in the first round?
Hey man, that's my name 10, Felix Anyadike Uzama.
Right. Never did it. Exactly. Never did.
Not doing anything.
Just the name.
I'm a more famous Felix than him, and that's saying a lot. He was drafted in the first round.
I think it's just like they cannot. Look, Chris Jones has anchored that D line for so long.
And he played well. He had a good game,
Yes.
and he's turned it on these last couple of weeks.
No, but that's also the problem. Like, dude, you're pushing it to where like he's probably almost done as well, and it's like you're getting to the point where you can't just switch it on and off.
Yeah.
If
you were going to switch it on and off, it should have been when you had 4 losses, and now you have 6.
Yeah. Not when it's like, oh, crap. We're about to not be in the playoffs. Look, this game was all 100%.
Good Lord, Cody's dying on the podcast. I got to carry us. I got to be the expert and the funny guy. Like, this is insane. I've never done this before.
Weather change. Oh, my goodness. All right. Anyway. This is all about the Cowboys and the fact that this defense
figured something out.
It actually looks good. I saw this is and I put it on Twitter. We're speaking on Monday, so I put it on Twitter. If you follow me on X, Twitter, go to Monday. There is a double post, and Reedy Stewart is matching it. He sees the post safety, the guy in the middle of the field, cut it. And take it, he cuts and caps the post from number 1. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, if this was week 3, that's a touchdown. Yeah. Mahomes throws a touchdown to number 1 on a moon ball. And then
I mean, they threw the touchdown to open the game, and I'm like, all right, the Dallas defense is whatever it is. But then they locked in. And so I think that's proof of Matt Eberflus being in the game on the sideline, whatever it is. And you can speak more to this, but I think it's like, all right, we're locking in no matter who's on the other side of the field. And I think this is especially where the Chiefs need to be, but they did exactly what they needed to do for their offense, and that's why they won the game by 3 points and not losing the game by 7.
Well, and the other thing too is like, look, I've been, I live in the DFW area, so I talk to a bunch of the people that follow Dallas all the time, and I'm like, look, just calm down. Eberflus is going to get figured out. Like, you have no talent.
Yeah,
I mean, look, my last year coaching, we're at in 2021, we're at life school, right? I had 0 kids, negative kids that would go to college. Like, they were like, we were not going to happen. We're playing Stephenville, who's going to go win a state championship, and they've got like 3 Division I kids on that team and playing 4A football. Like, I could have called the greatest game plan, and we did. Like, I did. I had a great game plan, man. It was 10-7 heading into halftime. And then both of my linebackers decide to blitz into the same gap. How? Because they're on opposite sides. They end in the same gap. There's obviously a gap open. He runs for a touchdown. Stephenville realizes, oh, wait, we're Stephenville. And then they proceed to score 40 points on it. So it's like, yeah, I've been there. And like, Eberflus is a proven winner, like in terms of on defense. He's a proven coach. He knows how to do it. He's going to clean it up. Look what happens when they clean up the middle of a defense. I was having a really interesting conversation before we came on here with Danny Heifetz as a ringer. And it's like, there's so much emphasis put on edge pressure that you forget the inside guys are really important too.
And you and I have had a ton of conversations about this over the last year and a half or whatever it is, where like positional value is really big. That's why Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, that's why they've had such big value over the last decade at this point. But even more so, and I think this was an interesting point. I was listening to Cowherd's podcast after the whole weekend, but I think it's really interesting in that with an offense like Dallas has, they're going to score points. But what other teams are going to do against Dallas is like, what do we do to keep that offense off the field? You're going to run the ball. All right, we're going to get Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, and then you have those guys to pressure up the middle, and then you have Overshown coming back. And I think that's a big part that was at least missed in my analysis pregame of like, oh no, they were getting a bunch of dudes just back, and then they added Quinnen Williams on top of it, and Logan Wilson was another guy that can play.
Well, and I think who else came back? I think Donovan Wilson came back too after injury too. Look, the other thing too is you in typical. I don't know where Dallas finds these guys, but Deron Bland's healthy, 5th round pick. You have Reedy Stewart, who was waived by the Vikings. You don't think that the Vikings want him back?
Yes.
Right? Then you have Kalen Carson, who's played really well, 5th round draft pick. You have Siobhan Ravel, who should have been a 1st round draft pick, but because of his knee injury, and rightfully so, he hasn't played until just now, 3rd round draft pick. So you're looking at all these guys and you're like, wait a second, they've been able to kind of recalibrate that secondary. They get DeMarvion Overshown, who's essentially the green dot. Yeah. And then you hit on edge. I mean, look, Jadeveon Clowney, he's a hot mess, but he's enough of an asshole that he's going to fit he wants to go bust some heads, dude. He is the epitome of like the guy who's listening to like Scandinavian death metal in the corner and like has like, and is like, I don't want to go over towards that guy. Cause he's like, look, man, I go black when I play on, this is like, he's going to just go hard. Now he's not going to get you a bunch of sacks, but he's going to go bust some heads.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that has been missed about Dallas and like their entertainment show, and this will be the last point that I have about them because they can go to hell. But also I think that Jerry Jones, for as much of a flack as he catches as a general manager with all the contract negotiations, dude can draft. I mean, I don't know. Whoever's actually doing the work in Dallas, they can draft. Whomever, because Micah Parsons hit. CeeDee Lamb hit. The vast majority of their contributors that we've been mentioning, aside from Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson, and George Pickens, who we haven't said anything about, are Dallas Cowboys. Like Dak Prescott over the past decade, 4th round pick. Like that is a really interesting point that is kind of missed over the Dallas discourse because of there's 18 other things to talk about. But Dallas has been drafting well.
Well, and they draft offensive linemen in the 1st round, which isn't sexy. We're not going to talk about it.
He's really good. Tyler Booker's can play.
But that's my point. Is like you're not going to talk about the first round draft pick because it's probably going to be some sort of offensive lineman.
Exactly.
I think if you look, like, we'll wrap this up in a bow and then we'll move to Packers Lions. But I think at the end of the day, it was really apparent. You talked about it. Chiefs didn't win the middle eight on offense. Couldn't score at the end of the half. Always kind of mess around. Their opening script on half.
Also, we got to stop throwing flags on Josh Simmons. That's as an offensive lineman, not a Chiefs fan. We got to stop throwing flags on Josh Simmons when he's putting people in the dirt.
Yes, pile driving a guy may not necessarily be holding all the time.
And it's going to be kind of an interesting thing to watch over the course of his career if he continues to do this. Like, if he is just that dominant of a player, do referees call holding? Because, like, does Trent Williams, and I haven't watched enough 49ers football or Trent Williams tape to say, like, does he get a flag here or there because he's just that much more dominant than the guy he's going against? Maybe. And I'm not saying Josh Simmons is that, but, like, that's what happened.
Right. And so you have the disjointed offense. But I think, look, again, as much as the defenses should be talked about for Dallas, which, by the way, everybody was obsessed with the five-man fronts. If you go and watch the film, the five-man fronts didn't have anything to do with this game. They actually weren't that great. It was the communication on the back end. People were where they were supposed to be. And then Quinnen Williams is just, he's Quinnen Williams. So,
and the Chiefs still scored 28.
Yes.
Like that's still what's impressive about that side of it.
Press pause. But are there positive signs? Yes. But I think at the end of the day, the Chiefs defense never adjusted.
No.
They had, I think Pickens ran, I was looking at I went, because the next day I was like, I gotta see the next gen chart for Pickens. And it was literally all slant routes. And it's like they never adjusted in palms, which palms is just two reads. So they never adjusted, which means the cornerback's outside. You have some sort of an overhang inside. And Dak was just getting it out in that little pocket. They couldn't stop him. And then they never stopped CD, which CD finally showed up. What the mature game, he finally showed up. He had his fun time in Las Vegas. He's back. Dak looks sharp. Look, he saw this is a zone pressure defense. Dak does really well against the pressure, saw the zones, threw it. I think we talked about this last week, that this defense has gotten a little stale. Mm-hmm. There was one really good pressure where they manipulated the protection. They got the running back to step up to Bolton in the middle of the field, and then the corner came in and slammed Dak. Other than that, it was hitting Boyd's. Yes, I know, one. There's always one with Spags. But the patterns have gotten, like the corner blitz. Dak saw that coming from a mile away, flipped it out to CD for a big game. And it's just like you kept seeing this with the blitzes, and then they're throwing slants behind it. Or the corner blitz, which, by the way, they run more than anybody else. So you're not hiding it. Mm-hmm. Typically, you want your corner blitzes to be hidden. But teams kind of have figured out. Now they have a plan for it, especially after the Super Bowl with the 49ers. So, All right, we've spent enough time on the Chiefs and the Cowboys. But if there's two teams, it's both America's teams, right? Both America's teams.
Yeah, a real America's team. All right, Packers complete the sweep over the Lions week 1. They dominated them. Week 13 was a bit more competitive. And I texted you during this game, Dan Campbell has to stop calling the plays. Because if you're calling a trick play on 1st and 10 from midfield, like, what are we doing? And they were guilty of this last year, but with Ben Johnson, it worked. Like, it worked more often. And it, like, obviously trick plays are only cool when they work. But at the same time, it's like, dude, what's going on? And now the Lions are in legitimate danger of missing the playoffs with the Bears currently the 1 seed in the NFC, and the Packers, they've completed the sweep on them.
The Bears.
Just
wild. To me, I think it's just wild to think that the Bears are there. But look, there were the notes I put in this game was pretty simple. Sometimes cornerback height does matter. Now, if you are on
size
Twitter,
matters, guys.
If you're on Twitter and you're a DB coach, it's always about, well, what about, does he have the dog in him, right? Like, just because he's 5'9", does he have the dog in him, right? Okay, yes, and every college coach in America wants a 6'2" plus corner. Yes, everybody does. Everybody does. Okay. Amick Robertson, 5'9". Christian Watson, 6'4". Christian Watson played basketball. And that was really, and look, Amick Robinson has really done a really good job. I
He
think.
had a lockdown game on Justin Jefferson last year.
Yes. And so like I think he's good. He's fine. I'm not really like it's nothing on him. Sometimes you just have those games. I think that was the deal. And look, two things. That the height when you're going to play a lot of man like that, you're going to get into situations where maybe Watson goes off or a guy like Watson, because Watson's 6'4" and can run.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Packers made their fourth downs. And like you said, with the play calling, some of the fourth down play calls were like, what was the one? It was like a reverse.
Yes. And then they lost like 7 yards on it. And I was like,
yeah.
good God. You might as well just drop back and say, Jared Goff, figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you're better off doing that and saying Micah Parsons, go ahead.
With 3 yards to go, I think that was the other thing. Like, if it was desperation, it's 4th and 7, you're trying to get a reverse or whatever. Even then, like they're going to be sitting back. The trick plays on fourth down, not mine. The Packers defense continues to evolve and it continues to get better. They're starting to run a bunch of quarters out of their base, and it's all it is 9-man spacing quarters, which means it's just max fit. Think of all the gaps up front. Everybody's there. Those safeties are essentially sitting there waiting to trigger. They have 2 really good safeties in McKinney and Williams. Williams looks like he looks like he's shot out of a rocket half the time, just coming down there and thumbing the kid from Oregon. Mm-hmm. They have these, like, they actually do it reverse of the way that at the high school level, you have a passive and aggressive safety where like the aggressive safety is usually the one that's to the weak side or that's in the open side or away from the tight end, and where the passive one's to the tight end because in case you get a vertical, they do it the opposite. If it's the open side, because a lot of times the tight ends in play action are just running shallow routes. They're not going to run verticals. And if they are going to run verticals, they're going to right into the safety as he steps down. They've actually flipped it. It's really good stuff. They use the tight end as an indicator for it. And I've been very, very impressed the past couple of weeks with it. But I agree with you. This Lions team, it's so weird that all the teams at the very beginning of the year that we thought they were like, okay, these are going to be the teams. But we knew, we had questions like the Lions. I'm not so sure about them. Some of these other Philadelphia. We even talked about, because my biggest concern with Philadelphia was a pass rush, and then who's going to play corner opposite Quincy Mitchell. Well, we're still looking for the pass rush. We're still looking for that, but then the offense fell apart, right? And we talked about that at the beginning of the year, about how it's like, well, we know it's not going to be a great offensive year because it's not a guy they hired from outside of the room. So it's like we kind of called that. And then I think with the Packers, let's talk about the Bears, because I think it's going to become the Packers and the Bears. The Bears to me are really, really surprising. This to me was the epitome of like throw to score, run to win game. But like but kind of in the embers. Yes, the Bears won. They rushed for 200 yards. Impressive. They only scored 25 points.
Yeah. Well, I think in a game, it is kind of interesting when you're playing against Jalen Hurts, and like the way this offense has been playing, you only needed 25 points. Like you only needed, and that's you can go into the game with that game plan of saying, all right, we're going to grind the clock, run the ball, 200 yards rushing, and they have been a very good running team this year. And so, like, you can go into that game against this offense and say, yeah, we can score about 21 points, especially if we trust our defense like Chicago did with the defensive injuries that they were getting back. And I have an affinity for Caleb, and I think he played well, played good, played on time and accurate, which is what people want him to do more than anything. And in a game where his stats aren't super sexy and impressive, he did exactly that, but people are probably going to get on him for his stats not being super high.
But yeah, the box score watching with Caleb Williams is frustrating because you're like, well, okay, it was 150 yards, but yeah, they ran the ball to win the game. But my point earlier was like, if all you're going to do is run the ball, you're not going to score very many points. Right. So you get in a game where you're going to have to score a bunch of points. They're not going to have 200 yards rushing.
Well, and even then, they put up 47 against Cincinnati. They put up 31 last week against Pittsburgh. And so I think that this Chicago team, I mean, I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender, but I mean, hell, if they get the 1 seed, they have to be in the conversation because they'd be a game away from the championship game.
And you don't want to play in Chicago. If they have a run game like this in January, see, that's the different. To me, that's the big difference between NFL and college. Is that the NFL, remember, lasts into February. And not everybody's playing in an indoor stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got to run the ball. Like passing the ball in a blizzard, you're gonna lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're gonna lose the game.
Absolutely. All right, I want to talk about two quarterbacks real quick. Jalen Hurts first. Can't beat you with his arm. And then I want to talk about Lamar Jackson, similar, obviously better version, better play style, MVP, but he obviously struggled a ton against, of all defenses, Cincinnati. But Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, everybody loves him. I think at this point we can be kind of solid in saying this. He's not that guy. He's just not that guy.
I'll put it this way. Let's stay in the division. If you flipped Hurts and Dak would be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Hurts probably would be right where he is, probably even less than where he is.
Yeah, I mean, because he would have to deal with Jerry Jones, and like that's what's kind of interesting. And I think in Philadelphia, it's a real Nick Sirianni problem of like, if you don't call plays on offense or defense, you're not like the whatever you're the CEO type. What are you doing?
I do agree with that. I think like people forget, yeah, but there's so many examples. Like, look, not everybody can be a play caller and be the head coach at the same time.
Right. I know. I completely agree with that. But like, what is it? Like, what?
Oh yeah. Yes, I get what your point. Yeah. What you're basically trying to say is like, if you're not the cheerleader or the mascot of the team, like, is that your only job?
What value are you offering?
Can we get somebody else to do that? Because we constantly have problems. I agree with you. I mean, he can't look Hurts. Let's talk about Hurts first. He cannot beat you with his arm. You have it in here. He's kind of like a golf pretty hybrid. I think that's pretty nice golf.
And I think that is I probably had a better explanation at the time when I wrote this, but I don't remember what it was. I think the more apt comp is Russell Wilson, because he goes deep and over the top and obviously has a mobility with his legs, but it's probably more like end stage Russell Wilson at this point, because they just can't move the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he was 6 for 16, 60 yards. I think if you watch that Bears tape, you know, the Bears have a good secondary. Don't get me wrong, but they are beat up at the linebacker spot. That defensive line kind of manhandled. Look, I think the biggest topic, and we've mentioned it a few times on here, is the degradation of the offensive line for the Eagles. I mean, I used to love watching Eagles offense. Like, I would watch the Eagles like the run fits, because it was like, man, this offensive line can block people. Like, they're moving. I'm a DB.
Like, and it is true that offensive linemen are just bigger than everybody else. But I remember watching an Eagles game, and my mom was like, "Are they just like bigger than literally ever?" Like, yeah. Lane Johnson is that big. Like, Landon Dickerson is that like they're just that much bigger. And I mean, this is a offense that had 450 rushing attempts on Saquon, and so, or 450 touches at least. That offensive line had to block for him too. So it is really interesting to see where this Philly offense moves, because I mean, they still have 8 wins, likely in the playoffs, likely win their division. I mean, depending on what Dallas does going down the stretch, we'll see.
Well, and you got here's the thing, because let's segue into the Lamar argument, because we kind of talked about Hurts. So the Ravens and the Eagles have the highest blitz rates against them in the NFL. Okay, and then Philly is even crazier. Like, they're almost 40% blitz rate. The average in the NFL, if you just take the average of all NFL teams, it's like depending on the week, it's right at 30 to 29%. They're getting blitzed a whole 10 points higher than the league average, and it's because he can't handle the blitz. There's not a lot of hot routes. There's not a lot of release routes for him. Everything is deep and outside. And I think what's interesting is, okay, the Ravens are kind of in the same boat. There's not the same offense, but it's the same style of like, it's very collegiate. They love spread. These aren't not a lot of condensed sets. They want to run the ball because they have a big time running back, and they have a running quarterback that doesn't really want to run the ball, or at this point in their career, they don't need them.
Whether it be injuries or whatever it is, it's becoming a problem where it's like, and again, we've said it before, I want to see Lamar Jackson win a Super Bowl at his optimum playing rate, but his passing game is only helped by the way he runs. And if you're not going to run, you're so much easier to defend just because you're one-dimensional at least. And I'm not even saying you're a bad passer, because as some people may get on Lamar's case for being not that good of a passer, I think he's a phenomenal passer. He wouldn't have won 2 MVPs had he, if he's not. But at the same time, you're just one-dimensional. You're Jared Goff at this point, and we can play you like that.
Well, and I think it's very odd. Again, we've talked. This is so crazy because these are a lot of the points that we've talked about at certain points through the offseason or this year. But Lamar, yeah, he does not want to run. You can tell, like, he wants to be a quarterback. And so I'm with you too. Like,
you are a quarterback, though. Like, you're just the most athletic one we've ever seen.
Right.
Do it.
You literally are what we want. We wanted Michael Vick to be. So just go do it. Yeah, I'm with you too. I think the last caveat to this, and then we'll talk really quickly about the Bengals Ravens. But the last caveat to this is Jaden Daniels. Also, there's 3 quarterbacks that see blitzing a third of the time, and Jaden Daniels is in that. What's the other common denominator there? A spread offense, mobile quarterback. So I think like the NFL's kind of figured out, like, hey, if you're a mobile quarterback, we're just going to bum rush you. We're going to keep you locked in. We're going to accelerate your reads. And then, you know what? If you do run, we'll kind of live with it. We'll figure it out.
Right. All right. Moving to Sunday, or excuse me. Actually, I want to stay here real quick. Cincinnati's defense. I know that Lamar Jackson didn't play very well on top of that, but they're able to get 5 turnovers. And like, what is it that turned it on for this defense? Because I mean, we joke about Al Golden wearing his tie. He's not wearing it no more, guys. But like, he figured something out, at least this week. Can he keep it going?
Yeah, I think that this was just one of those games. You go back and you watch the tape. I mean, and I wrote it in the notes. 5 turnovers, 3 sacks. I mean, the offense didn't show up.
Yeah.
And they were able to play man coverage, which, by the way, this is a historically bad defense. I think this says more about where the Ravens are right now than it does about the Bengals. You knew it was going to kind of be shootout-esque, and they played the Ravens on the opposite side. See, I think the story is actually on the other side. The Ravens played a ton of cover 3. Burrow and Chase took advantage, though they didn't get it. Like, Chase didn't have any touchdown, but it was all outside routes. He was able to get those chunk plays, and tail of the tape, man.
Yeah. Now we can push past Dolphins Saints pretty quickly because it's a Dolphins Saints. But the Dolphins get another win and they make that AFC East race just a little bit more interesting just because of where Buffalo is, and I know they get the win over the Steelers. But it is just kind of interesting to see how they move forward. But AFC South, believe it or not, incredibly entertaining division, and it starts with the Texans getting a win over the Colts, who are now 1-3 in their last 4 compared to the Texans, who are 4-0.
Yeah, man. The offensive output just continues to plummet. I mean, when you watch it, it's nothing like teams aren't scheming them. It's not a schematic thing. There's just no it factor from Jones anymore. I mean, he threw a nice deep ball to Pierce for a long touchdown. So it's not like, oh, well, he's not throwing the ball down anymore. He's come and check down Charlie. Okay, well, they're not running the ball well anymore. Well, Jonathan Taylor's still getting his yards. It's just statistically, if you look at the box score, he's great in the box score, but then something just seems off since Pittsburgh. Like, you just can't explain it other than I think teams have they're just not punching people in the mouth like they were. I think that people are taking them a little bit more serious. And coaches will tell you this. McVay got pissed off because people were like, "Oh, were you looking?" And we'll talk about the Panthers game in just a second. But people are like, "Oh, were you looking over?" And it's like, no. In the NFL, I mean, even the Raiders, even the Saints with the Dolphins, you can't overlook any team. They have professional players on it. But I do think, like, for the Colts, is that we see this every year. A team gets hot. And then the back half of the season, teams start kind of figuring it out, or their schedule gets a lot tougher because they start playing in their division.
Absolutely. All right. Sticking in the division, the Jags take care of the Titans. Not going to talk too much about that game because the Titans are an absolute mess.
Less than 200. I think it was like, I looked at it. It was like literally like 200 even.
Good God. But the division tightens up the schedules tighten up for the 3 teams still in the running to win this division: Colts, Texans, Jags. Texans need the Jags to collapse, while the Colts would just need to figure it out over, like just get it back to where they were.
There's a scenario. I put it in here in our notes. There's a scenario. Look, they have at Jacksonville, at Seattle, 49ers. They play Jacksonville again, at Texans. There is if you give them one win in that, they beat Jacksonville at home, they split with Jacksonville. That's a 1-4.
If you give them a win, and that's, I mean, at this point, like, it's just really hard because Jacksonville's trending, like, that defense is pretty good. I'm a believer
because
in
you're
Trevor
right.
Lawrence.
Think about it. If you go in there and you say, okay, we lose at Jacksonville, we lose at Seattle, we lose at the 49ers, who, by the way, Seattle and the 49ers, they're really good and they're both physical teams.
Yes.
You're looking at Jacksonville at home and you're just like, we're 1-6 in our last 7 games. Like, let's just pack it in. It was fun while it lasted.
I mean, and that's the thing. It was fun while it lasted, but we traded 2 first-round picks to try and win a Super Bowl this year, and now we can't move around to try and go get a quarterback next year.
See, and so I think, like, that's a great point, Felix, is because if you look at this, like, in hindsight, it's like, bro, you guys double down on this and your offense collapsed. Now, if they flip it and they go 4-1, then it's like we're looking at a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, exactly. And Houston's defense is just so elite. They need CJ Stroud to be worth anything.
That's weird. It's the same thing. They were literally like the meme of Spider-Man where they're all pointing at each other because you're just like, what's wrong with the Colts offense? And then you look over at the Texans and you're like, what the hell's wrong with their offense?
For a year and a half now.
Yes, they've got players. Now, look, the Texans could probably argue that it's a lot of it has to do with the offensive line and then just like you're playing a bunch of rookie receivers.
But you traded Laramie Tunsil.
You have Nico Collins. And CJ Stroud is not just terrible. He is better than Daniel Jones.
Woody Marks can play.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm with you. Like, this division, it's so bad. And then, hey, this is a great segue because we're gonna quickly talk about there was a game play between the Falcons and the Jets.
And so Felix won money on it, and that's the only thing that matters.
Cousins didn't throw a pick. Bijan Rudd goes off for 142 yards, 1 turnover, and they lose. If I would have told you, and I'm looking at this.
To the Jets.
And I'm looking and I'm like, wait a second. The Jets gave up 142 yards of rushing, and Cousins didn't throw a pick. You had 1 fumble. I'm thinking you blew them out. It's like 30-17 or something. No, you lost. Jets were under 250 yards total. Like, that's the other thing. Like, missed field goal and the turnover is the difference. I mean, leave it for the Falcons. All right, let's talk about – I don't even want to dwell on that game. What a weird game. Rams versus the Panthers. The Panthers receiving core is humongous.
But their quarterback is a child.
Yes.
And Bryce Young, we have the same birthday. I've got a lot of love for him, obviously an NFL player. His voice, too. He sounds very small. Like, he just sounds like a small person, but also he's got receivers that can just rebound the basketball.
Yeah, when they can – I mean, that's the thing I think was frustrating, like, against the 49ers was, like, the offense was terrible. Ted McMillan had, like, 2 or 3 drops. Leggett disappeared, which he tends to do. And so you're just like, man, you're on prime time. You're on national TV. Like, you only ran the ball, like, 9 times. You're just like – you did the opposite of what the Panthers are supposed to do in order to win. I cannot figure this thing. I tweeted it out. I was like, I literally have watched every down on offense and defense of this team all year. And I can't figure them out. I don't know what's wrong with them. I think the defense is better than people think. I think the offense, when he hands the ball off to the 2, they probably have one of the better backfields in the NFL. It's amazing what happens. And then when your receivers don't drop the ball and you just keep a clean pocket, I thought it was really nice. It's 60% run calls. Keep doing that. And they went after Forbes, which I thought that was the thing. People had not really been testing Emmanuel Forbes, and they were like, look, our guy is bigger than – it's the Amy Roberts versus Christian Watson. Mm-hmm. Our guy is bigger than your guy. Your guy may be tall, but our guy is bigger, and we're just going to go play. Sometimes football is simple. Just go play basketball. Multiple 4th down touchdowns. How about that? 2 of them went for over 10 yards. That's bonkers crazy.
It's crazy. And Matt Stafford throwing 2 picks and it was his first pick in like 10 games or whatever.
He had thrown what was it? He thrown 3 picks.
30 touchdowns or something like that and 3 picks all season long. And he had 2 in the first quarter. Like it just
And
wasn't.
And it wasn't like the Panthers really stopped the Rams. It was the typical, like, I always go back to like a flex bone team. Like, they just were like, we're going to keep the ball away from you. We're going to run the ball. Your offense isn't going to be over, but we're going to score when we do have the ball. So you're constantly playing keep up, and you get frustrated because you're not scoring quickly. And then but you look up at the end of the day and you're like, those 2 picks, that's why we lost, because those were 2 downs that we gave back to them that they were able to drain more clock. I think the clock management thing, and like I think the time of possession, which I'm not a big time of possession guy, but there are games where it pops up. This was one of those where it does matter.
Yep, and it's pretty obvious in that one. All right, Browns 49ers, not a ton to spin on that one. It's kind of the story of the Browns past couple of years. We have it in the first half. Our defense is tired, and then we don't have the quarterback to keep it up with the 49ers of all teams, who aren't like, and I know their record says that they're awesome, but they're not like mind-blowingly good like they have been in
the defense is not
years.
great.
Exactly. They just have the right mind figuring it out, and I think that they'll be better next year.
I just feel bad for the defensive roster because, like, Myles Garrett is probably going to break the sack record this year. And
he might do it next week, and he's 4 away.
Exactly. It's like if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody notice? Oh, look, all of us football nerds know, but like you forget, like Denzel Ward, Delpit, that roster's good. The Schlesinger kid that they got from UCLA is probably one of the best young linebackers in the NFL. No one's even talking about it.
Well, I think one of the interesting parts about it is they just signed Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski to a long-term deal. So those guys are sticking around. And I'm not saying like you got to make a change, like you should fire those guys, but like, what do you do in a situation like this?
Because what that tells me is like that's 100% on the top end. That's 100% on the top end. Like, look, Stefanski, I think if you ask, like, Stefanski is one of those guys that it's like if you ask around, it's kind of like Matthew Stafford. Like, if you ask all the quarterbacks in the NFL, who's your favorite quarterback? It's like a majority of them are like Matthew Stafford. Right. And then it's like if you ask a lot of the head coaches around the NFL, like, hey, who's your favorite head coach? They're like, oh, Kevin Stefanski's great. And they're like, but they suck. And it's like, yeah, because they have the quarterback hell. I mean, it literally.
Just go Google the quarterbacks that the Browns are paying for the next couple of years. It's a who's who of who.
Yeah, and Shedeur, let's be honest, we'll wrap this up really quickly with Shedeur. My dad used to just scream. Because my dad, if you don't know, I'm a Colorado Buffs fan and a Denver Bronco fan because my dad grew up in Denver. So we watched Buffs games, and he would just be screaming at the TV of like, why are you still holding the ball? He had a time to throw of like almost 4 seconds, and you're just like, that you're going to get sacked. And even at the 49ers, who literally have no pass. Yeah, so it just was not – he had a pressure rate of 40%, and it was because he held the ball for almost 4 seconds, and then they have no passing game. Judkins is good. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the Cards and the Bucs.
All right, Cards, Bucs. Cardinals lose another game by 1 score, and it looked like the Bucs were going to run away with that one for a blowout, but then the Cardinals were like, we're kind of a football team. We're kind of getting it going, and then they're like, oh, yeah.
They are the definition of mid, as my 12-year-old would say. They are mid. They have no juice. I still think, look, I'm still convinced Brissett is the best quarterback for them. They've had bad injury luck. They're essentially the anti-49ers, where the 49ers have bad luck, but then they're 9-4. And then you have the Cardinals that have terrible injury luck. They can't win a game. They lose every game by like 4 points, 3 to 4 points. And then they're sitting there at 3-9. So it's the opposite. Baker looked good again. Hey, I think the big picture here, this is a team that I don't think a lot of people want to play in the last month of the season heading up into look, as much as I am a big fan, if you don't know, I work with a Caleb Evans, who's a corner. He actually got to play a bunch they've had some injuries, got to play a bunch for Carolina. So I watch all the Carolina things. If you were in that random and you're like, why the hell is he watching Panthers? That's why. Anyway, but I do think like the Buccaneers are still probably going to win this division. And it's just because they're getting everybody back. And look, it's amazing. They had a 50% pressure rate against the Arizona Cardinals. What's been the Achilles heel for them all year is that they have a decent secondary, not great. They want to play a lot of zone pressure. We talked about it in the Cowboys Chiefs game, zone pressure, and you're not getting any pressure. Go ask the Vikings the first year Flores was there. Yeah, blitz rate 70%, but we never like our actual sack rate is like 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, look, they have to play Carolina twice. Whoever wins, though, if one team can sweep the other, then it's probably that's the team that's going to win. But Tampa's Bucky Irving came back. Evans and McMillan are about to come back. Cansey, who we just talked about, Cansey and Vita Vea inside is, I don't want to deal with that. Reddick is back, so that's a team to watch.
All right, the Seahawks dominate the Minnesota Vikings, and it was. I keep texting you, and I feel like it's probably annoying that I keep texting you that Kevin O'Connell is just going through it, whether it be with JJ McCarthy or Carson Wentz earlier this year. But Brosmer could not have really given him any confidence as a play caller going into that game, especially after the pick. And then you're going up against Mike McDonald, the defensive Sean McVay.
Oh man, yeah, it was Vikings are another one. I know like everybody that on the beat for the Vikings. I've done so much work on Flores. I just like that defense is fun to watch, and then you're like,
and they had a couple of moments in this game.
Yes.
It's just that it was not going to happen.
It's like watching the Browns.
Yeah,
you watch the Browns for the defense. You flip it when they're on offense. You come back when they're on defense, and then you're like, oh crap, how are they losing? And then the Will Levis toss for the touchdown, that was like, I turned the game off after that.
Dude.
I just because look, I like McDonald and I like Flores. That's a good game for me. Like, I'm excited to watch this game, and I kind of like the Vikings. So it's like, I'm done. I'm not watching that game anymore.
You could not. But let's talk Bills Steelers, because it was a weird game early on, because I still don't have a ton of confidence in the Buffalo offense as things currently stand, outside of Josh Allen, which is, I mean, your offense should be 98% your quarterback, but at the same time, it's like they need some juice elsewhere, and James Cook has been very, very good for them. But then, even then, Josh Allen, when he's turning the ball over and you're not getting the big explosive plays because you don't have the receivers that you used to have at one point. I mean, I guess they still do have Gabe Davis, but it's Gabe Davis 5 years older. But nonetheless,
Yes.
it is kind of weird to sit in that game and be like, we're in it with the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers' nose is bleeding.
Yeah, your defense can't go into shambles if, Kincaid your tight end gets hurt. I mean, it's the same thing with the Raiders. Like, it's so really interesting. Like, the Raiders and the Cardinals are all kind of like in the same boat with them, of like, our tight end is our black hole. Like, they get all the target share. And I think the difference from like a guy like JSN with Njigba with Smith and Jigba with the Seahawks, who gets the highest target share. Well, he's a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end, like, he can run away from people. Like, I think tight ends, like, yes, that's great, but if that's the only receiver you have, you're in trouble. I think the Bills, like I said, it's kind of like the Jaguars. Do we trust the Jaguars to win the South? It's like, okay, do we trust the Bills to go and win against the Patriots? Do we trust the Patriots?
Yes. And like, I know that I was sitting there watching the game, and I was praying for the Steelers to win, because I pray for my enemies' downfalls all the time. But I'm sitting there like, if Buffalo were to lose this game, how confident would Buffalo fans feel at 5 losses versus how I feel at 6 losses? Because it's like, it's kind of in the same spot. You're not going to win your division with the Broncos and Patriots ahead of you. It's just one of those weird spots. Like, how does it work out? Speaking of division leaders, your stupid Broncos won another game. Which
Dude,
and
I just sweat through that whole thing, man.
No, and I had two too. I had Washington plus 5.5. So when they go to overtime, I'm like, please just let them win by a field goal. That's fine. But no, the few times we get to let Bo Nix score a touchdown, which, and I think this is kind of it's kind of damning for the Broncos. Him and Marcus Mariota played a very similar game.
Yeah, the only thing is, like, Bo Nix will actually throw the ball down the field.
Yes.
I thought it was that's one of those games where you go back and you look at the box score and you're like, what? The Broncos threw the ball 47 times.
Yes.
And then you're like, Marcus Mariota threw the ball 50 times. And you're like, is that true?
Yeah.
And I watched the whole game, and I'm just like, why? Why are you doing that? I thought it was really like it was weird too. Like the Broncos, I thought for whatever reason the run game was really disjointed. I thought, um, look, the Commanders' run game was really good. They knew they were going to get 5-man fronts. They did a lot of gap scheme, means they're pulling offensive linemen, and then they were doing a lot of like insert stuff with their tight ends to get on top of those linebackers. They know that they're getting edge pressure from the safeties on the outside. They're not getting a lot of internal pressure. And so I thought they kind of like really tried to kind of create like a cone, right? Like we're gonna just kind of like wedge everything in there. We're gonna pull because it's a 5-man front. So if you don't know, like if you have a 5-man front, you wanna pull because it's easy down blocks. You pull a guy. If you have a 4-man front and they're wide, like the Texans, like the Colts trap. I think I've even put it in the notes. Like the Colts trapped the hell out of the Texans. The difference is those linebackers are going so vertical that they were just punching like literally like Taylor was getting met in there and like the blocking couldn't get there. But I thought Commanders did an excellent job. They mentioned it on the broadcast. Mariota was getting the ball out in less than 2 seconds. The few times that he threw that pick to Greenlaw, and then he almost threw a pick later. So it was like, please do not hold the ball. Here's a crazy stat for you on this. Because of his quick release, Next Gen said this was the lowest pressure rate since the infamous 70-point game in 2023.
Good God.
But Benito still had 2 sacks.
Yeah. Well, and the only reason I say that they had very similar games is because, and it's to your point, when they held the ball, things got a little dicey. When Bo Nix had that pick on 3rd and 8, it was just like, yeah, you probably should have got it out. And it was just such a critical moment of the game. It's like, you cannot throw that pick on 3rd and long, throw it away, you punt it, trust your defense, keep moving forward. But it was just one of those, and I don't think the game needed to be as close as it was, but hey.
I'll just say this too. Because I got asked by somebody who's like, "Hey, what was the deal with I thought Kingsbury had a good plan. Like, what was he doing?" And he's like, "Well, the Broncos, for whatever reason, played a ton of zone, and so I go back. Dak Prescott, right? You have some of these other quarterbacks that we've talked about already this week. Like, if you're going to zone pressure." And the quarterback's getting the ball out quickly. And the offensive coordinator is smart enough to design routes where there's a guy in voided zones. And you get that ball out, you're going to be fine. And so I think it was a combination of that. I think they were worried about Mariota being able to run. Terry McLaurin in man coverage running across the field, I think was another deal. How about this crazy stat? And we'll finish to this one before we get to the Thursday preview. But Traylon Burt with that insane catch over Riley, which poor Riley Moss, because people are going to be like, oh, Riley Moss gives up a bunch of stuff. They're going to look as a one white corner to one of 3 in the NFL. Please, there was nothing he could have done in that situation. And he gets most of it. He's better than people think just because he gets such a high volume, but his completion rates are low. And they're going to put that on SportsCenter and be like, well, throw it at the white kid.
You got to. If I'm being honest, if they're giving me one snap at quarterback and they're like, you got a brother over here and a white corner over here, which side am I throwing it to? Come on,
100%. 100%.
We're throwing it to one side. I don't care if it is God.
I always loved it, dude. I always loved it because I would be like, I knew I was going to get the fade ball early in the game and I was so ready for it. And then it would come and they were like, oh, white boy can run. Okay. Let's go to the other side. And so it's just like, it's so funny. But the problem with Moss is when you have an all-pro defensive player of the year in Surtain on the other side, you're just gonna get it. All right. Final. I appreciate if you've noticed as we get longer in the season, these games are better and we get longer. There's more ball. So, thank you for staying with us. If you're still with us, we appreciate it. So let's talk real quick about this Thursday game, the Cowboys Lions. I really think, to me, I think the Lions, this is all the pressure's on the Lions. 100% of this pressure is on the Lions. You think about this. If the Lions lose to the Cowboys, if the Lions lose to the Cowboys, that puts them at a 7-6 versus 2 teams that only have 3 losses.
Absolutely.
You're pretty much done.
Absolutely. And that is particularly it is such a weird spot for that team because they were so close. Like, they were the best team in football for the regular season 2 years ago, and then last year they played in the they never played or they played in the NFC Championship game against San Francisco. They've been phenomenal over the last handful of years. When does the clock start to run out? Like, is it the quarterback? Is it the coach? Like, what is the thing with this team that's like not going to get them over the top, and especially with the rest of the division ascending? And I know that things aren't going well in Minnesota right now. Only a matter of time till KLC gets to figure it out, or they restart their organization. But then Chicago, they're the 1 seed right now. They're where you were a year ago.
Yeah.
And Green Bay, they swept you this year. So
Well,
it's like where you got to look in the mirror and see where you are as an organization, as a franchise, because you watched all of these teams pass you.
Hey, and this is not going to be fun, because this is you want to know what your December is? It's, we have to play the Cowboys, who might be arguably one of the hotter teams in the NFL. We have to go at LA, who's going to be pissed off, and they cannot let up, and they're not going to sleep on you. Mm-hmm. Then you got to go, okay, you play Steelers at home. You could argue by about that time, Aaron Rodgers will have probably given up on every receiver, because it's like, Aaron, look in the mirror. If you have continuously disconnection problems with your receivers, it might be you. And then you're at the Vikings, who you could say might win, but then you're at the Bears to finish at the end of the year. So there's potential where, hey, you come out of there 2-2. You lose to the Cowboys, you lose to the Rams. Hell, the Steelers could come up and bite you, especially put Aaron Rodgers in a dome.
And they're still fighting for a playoff spot. I mean, with Baltimore losing this weekend, it's still wide open in the AFC North.
Oh, 100%. So, like, nothing's – look, again, I will never – like, it's an evergreen tweet of, like, some point during the year, you put the Undertaker meme on Twitter and just put Tomlin. And it's just like he will rear his ugly head, and he just will always consistently find a way to have a winning record. And I think, like, to me, here is like the Lions. This game is about the Lions. It's not about the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are like looking at this now and like, look, this is all icing on the cake. We're 3-0. If we can beat the Lions, we're 4-0. We get the Vikings, we're 5-0. I don't know if they can beat the Chargers, but as well as I do, Chargers are a weird team, right? Then you have the Commanders.
It felt like they were going to lose to the Raiders.
Yeah.
So who knows? So
it's like, you look at this. I mean, the Cowboys, on the other hand, could roll off almost like 5 wins to finish off. They roll off 5 wins. They're probably a playoff team. And
then the Chiefs win 6 straight, and it's just like,
get out of here. Get out of town.
I love it.
Okay. It has come full circle. It is time to go. Hey, if you have made it this far and you're on the browser, please go to your favorite, whether it's Spotify or Apple, and please subscribe and then put a rating and review. It'll help us grow. Right now, Spotify is doing awesome for us, but Apple, it's all y'all on match quarters, and then you're just going to Apple. But hey, put it in there so we can get a little bump. We're trying to grow the show. Look, I'm trying to get Felix out of his mom's basement. So help us out.
My mom's basement.
Help this thing go viral.
It's just me and the dog here.
All right, man. Hey, make sure you go watch football. We'll talk to you later.